Have you ever been frustrated when your React component just won't render the props from its parent? You're not alone. Today, we're diving into a common issue that many developers face: React components not rendering props correctly. I totally get it. It can be really annoying when you see the props in the console, but they just won't display on the screen. You're not the only one who has faced this challenge. Let's work through it together. Here's the specific situation we're looking at. A user has a component called sci-info that is supposed to pass props to a child component called info. They see the props in the console, but the data isn't rendering as expected. Sound familiar? Let's dig into this together. So what could be going wrong here? It seems like the props are being passed correctly, but the child component isn't updating when the props change. This can often happen due to how React handles state and props. Let's break it down step by step. And don't go anywhere. I've got a crucial tip at the end that will help you ensure your components render props correctly every time. To address the issue of the React component not rendering props from the parent, the user should first ensure that the data being passed is indeed an array. This can be done by checking the output of the getAttributes function. Next, the user should confirm that the child component, info, is correctly receiving the props. This can be done by logging the props in the constructor or render method. If the props are being received correctly but still not rendering, the user should check if the component is re-rendering when the props change. This can be done by implementing the component did update lifecycle method. Lastly, the user should ensure that the rendering logic in the info component is correctly set up to handle the data. If the data is an array, it should be mapped to display each item. Did you know? React was developed by Facebook and is now one of the most popular libraries for building user interfaces. It's amazing how far we've come in web development. Now, let's look at the answers provided by other users. An alternative solution suggests that the props are not rendering because the function getAttributes is asynchronous. The user recommends calling this async method directly in the parent component and updating the state using component will receive props. In the render method, they suggest checking if the state data is an array and mapping over it to display each item. This ensures that the component updates correctly with the new data. Now, let's see a response from a different user. An alternative solution suggests modifying how you pass the data to the child component. Instead of calling the foo function directly, you should pass it as a function reference. This ensures that the child component receives the updated data correctly. Additionally, since the data is an array, you need to render it using the map method. This allows you to iterate over each element and display it properly in the child component. That's all on that answer. Let's take a look at another one. An alternative solution suggests that to render an array of data, you should first check if the data is indeed an array. Then use the map function to iterate over each element and render them accordingly. Here's the crucial tip I promised. Always ensure that the data being passed as props is a new reference when it changes. This will help React recognize the change and trigger a re-render. And there you have it. With these tips, your React components should be rendering props correctly in no time. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button for more tips, and don't forget to check out our next video for more React troubleshooting.